All right, welcome back everybody to the live stream here on the formulajonah YouTube channel. It's been about a week since we did the last live stream, and I'm excited to bring it back here for the Qatar Prologue recap or discussion as we head into a very exciting race weekend of the Qatar 1812 kilometer. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. But welcome to everybody who's joined so far. I hope we get a bunch of viewers in for this stream. Today, I'm bringing back David, who is joining us. If you guys did miss out on who David is and our live stream plans for this this kind of year, definitely go check out the previous live stream, which we discussed all that sort of thing. David introduced himself. We talked about our live schedule and just all that sort of thing. Also going into our WEC predictions. But all that is over. It's time to get into the real content, which is starting today with the WEC Prologue. First up, David, are you excited for this upcoming Qatar 1812 kilometer, and what is your thoughts on the Prologue so far?
I must say I'm buzzing right now. It's finally here. It's been a long winter, but now it's finally here, and I'm so ready for the race, man. I'm ready to not get any sleep again. It's gonna be so nice. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and that's a good point you mentioned there with not getting sleep, proving that it's going to be a long race. And this kind of ties in with a question that we already got in the comments asking how many hours long will the race be? It's going to be 10 hours long. That's why David mentioned he might not be getting a lot of sleep. And same goes for me as well. And I'm sure a lot of you viewers watching because it is going to be a long event, the second longest event on the calendar. By the way, speaking of Qatar, there is a race preview coming out for it, I believe either today or tomorrow. So look out for that video coming out. It basically describes everything that's going on for the Qatar 1812 kilometer. Definitely an informative discussion. So anyway, today let's get into the real topic. The WEC has finished the prologue for the first 2024 session. This effectively is testing for the upcoming season. And yeah, there's a lot to discuss from it. Today in this live stream, we'll be primarily focusing on the WEC prologue across the two sessions of Hypercar and LMGT3. And yeah, we're just going to give our general thoughts from what we thought of it. It's basically a recap, an analysis of what happened during the prologue session. So I guess before we begin with it, I think we should mention, David, that this
yeah.
prologue was delayed. It was delayed from the original start date. Could you tell us a little bit more about why it was delayed and kind of
It was
what
some.
happened?
I mean, it was some transport problems. So like of course, when things get delayed and there gets problems at the start of the season, everybody's already stressed, is nervous. So having a delayed session for the prologue is not ideal. Um, but at the end of the day, we got the cars out. They drove, like some better than others. We'll get to that, but yeah, I think it was some transport problems that made it so that the cars weren't ready. Um, but honestly, I don't know much about it. I just know that I had to wait even more for, like every one of you guys. Like I had to wait more before I could see these cars out of the track. And when they finally came out on track, man, that was nice. That was good.
I echo your words there, David. It was absolutely phenomenal to see all the cars out on track. We had been waiting this moment for not just the winter break, but even before that as well. I think 2024 has been hyped up quite a bit, and it's real hype. You know, it's not like fake hype like other series out there. And no offense to any other series. But the WEC has truly entered a new golden age with 19 hypercars on track, 18 in LMGT3, creating a 37 car grid for the Qatar 1812 kilometer. And I mean, it's just incredible to see all these cars out on track. We have all the new hypercars out as well from Alpine, BMW, Lamborghini, and Isotta Fraschini. And there's other entries as well in hypercar that are brand new, such as the customer Ferrari, which is yellow. You know, it's different from the factory
Yeah.
red Ferrari, which is very cool and it stands out on track. So now that we've got out of the way why the prologue was delayed, it was delayed till Monday and Tuesday. And now we can kind of go into the actual prologue itself. So there's a lot of takeaways from it, but at the same time, we know that this prologue doesn't really define who is fastest, right?
No, it's like we saw with Formula One. We could say, okay, Porsche were the fastest throughout most of the sessions, but that doesn't mean that when we come to race day they will be dominating the race. It just gives us an idea of who is on top with the new car, or with the new parts to the car, or which teams will have to work ahead of the race. Plus, we'll have to take in the fact that there could be sandbagging ahead of the season because of the BOP system. Maybe teams prioritize Le Mans instead of the whole season. We have seen it before with Ford doing it for the Ford Mustang, the Ford GT. So maybe they will do it again. I hope not, but it would definitely not be the first time we see it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, some teams may be focusing on other things. We saw this during the session, that some teams were focusing, or some manufacturers, some teams were focusing on long run pace rather than overall pace in general. And I think some teams that were focusing on how fast their car was were also focusing on long run pace. That's kind of what the prologue was. It's testing in all around. It's not like a competitive session like the qualifying or hyperpole, or of course the race itself. It effectively is where teams and drivers and cars and manufacturers can all basically just do what they need to do before the session begins. And I'm sure that each of these teams that have participated in the prologue session in Qatar definitely learned a lot heading into this Qatar 1812 kilometers. So it's definitely essential as we head into this. So we have 50 viewers already in the live chat. Great to see this so far. I think last time we got around 100. Let's see if we can break that. If you guys are new to the channel as well, make sure to subscribe. Definitely a channel to subscribe to, as this is endurance racing. This is the home of the content on endurance racing weekly, at least. So definitely somewhere to stay put, when it comes to endurance racing. I'll try to get a lot of content out there, as David is joining live stream as well. So
Exactly, we're doing loads more live streams. So for people who love this segment, there'll be definitely more of it coming. But the videos are quality made, so don't go sleeping on them. They're good. They're worth a watch.
Yeah, thank you, David, and thank you again to everybody who's joined the live stream. I think we should talk about who was fastest in Hypercar. I think that's kind of the main talking point, and this was a little bit of a surprise to me, considering what we have seen in the past of the prologue sessions. But there's one word that describes this, and one brand that describes this: Porsche. Porsche is the manufacturer that has gone fastest in every single session. And David, I know you're a huge Porsche fan, so why don't you tell us what this means to you as a Porsche fan, and what this means in general and realistically heading into the season itself?
Well, it's like, as you said, I'm a Porsche fan. I mean, I'm an Audi fan, but any German car is there for me. But yeah, Porsche. It's not a surprise seeing them coming out the second year with the car, being much more competitive than the first year. We saw with the 919, also having problems for the first year, and coming out the second year absolutely dominating the WEC. I don't think that we should take this as Porsche coming out and dominating the season, like either if it's Jota or if it's Porsche Penske. I don't think so. I think they'll be way more competitive than last year. But I also see from a bigger picture, I see the whole field being way more competitive. Like with the BOP. I know we're gonna get on to the BOP later. But yeah, Porsche is definitely smiling in their garages right now ahead of the first race. I think it's going to be a great season, and maybe my prediction of putting them on number 2 for the championship will come true.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I mentioned we did predict, both of us actually did predict Porsche to be a lot faster this season in general, putting them P2 in the championship in our previous live stream we did. So as David mentioned, hopefully that prediction does come true, and maybe it will. But yeah, and the fascinating thing about Porsche is that this doesn't technically prove that they are going to be the fastest team. I wouldn't take anything from this, as David mentioned. Toyota is definitely still the team to beat, or still the manufacturer to beat. Toyota Gazoo Racing has the most experience. It's been proven. However, and we'll get into this later, as David mentioned, the BOP, or balance of performance, has hurt them on one side. And we'll explain a little bit more about that. And maybe that's why Toyota are struggling just a tiny bit compared to the likes of Porsche or Ferrari, for example. But I'm going to pull up a graphic out on screen now. So we have the Qatar Prologue Day 1 results here. Hertz Team Jota with the number 12 car were fastest overall. Callum Ilott setting in a 140.5, I believe. Ferrari were quick as well in the session, the number 50 car going second, with the second Hertz Team Jota Porsche, the number 38 car, which ran last season, in third, followed by the Ferrari number 51 and number 2 Cadillac. And then I'm going to show session 2. This is Qatar Prologue 2. Number 5 Porsche was on top. And this is day 2, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned before, but that other session was day 1. So this includes session 3 and session 4 here. Porsche were on top in, again, in the day 2 session, but this time it was the factory car, the Penske entry, the number 5 car. And this was actually the fastest lap overall, a 140.4 by the number 5 car. And surprisingly, Cadillac was up there as well, strong pace by the number 2 Chip Ganassi entry. We'll talk about Cadillac in just a moment. And then the 3 Ferraris rounding up the top 5 in that session. So day 1, day 2, seriously impressive stuff from both Porsche, factory cars from Penske. The number 6 car wasn't too far as well, and the Hertz Team Jota cars. I think that's a good transition to move to. Penske look very quick. You know, they had the fastest time in the session. However, Hertz Team Jota, very surprising stuff from them. Session 1, and I'm just going to point this out real quickly. Session 1 was impacted. I believe only 3 cars went on track, so I'm not going to count that really. But in general, Hertz Team Jota had very strong pace in the prologue in session 2 to round off with the fastest time. Keep in mind that this prologue session doesn't judge where a manufacturer is going to be. All these brands are testing totally different times. So Porsche may be fastest overall in all sessions, but this doesn't mean that they're going to be the fastest manufacturer when it comes to race day on March 2nd. But David, we talked about Porsche just in general.
Not at all.
We talked about Porsche just in general, but what about Hertz Team Jota in particular? What's your thoughts on them? Could they potentially challenge Penske?
I mean, we already saw it last year. It's a very, very professional and competitive team. Great drivers. Jenson Button, one of the drivers. I mean, we can't put a finger on the drivers for the team, but I also see like Porsche Penske. We saw it in IMSA. We saw it at Daytona, especially. It's a tough competitor to go up against. But I think if there is anybody, it's teams like Jota and the likes of them that's gonna be competitive against them. It seemed that Jota had a better understanding of the car than Porsche Penske actually did last year. They were able to find a bit more pace, especially at Le Mans, where they were leading throughout a good amount of the race and being very competitive. So I see them being a bit of a dark horse to race wins as well. But I wouldn't count out. It's a thing where everyone could win a race this year, I think. It's every race will be different. Every race will be with new leaders and new winners, podium places, all that stuff. So saying that it's either Porsche or Porsche Penske or Team Hertz Jota, it's like pointing a finger in the dark. I mean, any of these teams in Hypercar could win. Maybe Sutter is a bit far stretched, but everyone else.
Yeah, that's a good point to mention. I think Hertz Team Jota is definitely in a good spot. You know, I think they definitely seem to have a deep understanding of that 963. I would say Penske is still the brand that's probably going to be the fastest overall, but Hertz Team Jota definitely showing that they can't just challenge them, but can also or they can also challenge them, but they can also beat them on multiple occasions,
Yeah,
which would be great. So we'll see how that goes. But we talked a lot about Porsche. What about these other brands in hypercar? You know, there's a lot of manufacturers out here. David, what's your thoughts on all the other brands in hypercar, excluding the new entries? I want to just
okay.
touch on the actual existing ones from last season. Is there any improvements from the side of those brands?
I mean, in general, yeah, I would say Peugeot is one of the biggest surprises for me. It's still early, but like, and they have also been helped a lot by BOP.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting to see if they finally find a pace, and then they will change their package after Imola. You said last time, so it's quite funny to follow that scene right now in a transition period. A team that surprised me a bit is actually Toyota. I know they have changed some things about the car, and I'm interested in seeing if they still will be as dominant as the rest of the pack is going to catch up. It definitely seems as though that the other teams are catching up, and Toyota has to do something drastic to stay as dominant as they have done. But that's also great. I mean, we see it right now, Formula One being like a bit boring with Max Verstappen doing absolutely amazing and Red Bull doing absolutely amazing, but it doesn't help the sport that the same team is winning all the time. So what we're seeing right now in Hypercar is great for the sport, and I truly believe that we'll not have a dominating season for Toyota this year.
Yeah, it's interesting that with Toyota, they, from judging by the sessions, they were not in the top 10, I believe, across any of the sessions. I could
Yeah.
be wrong on that. Like they're not apparent on the top five results. That's what I was trying to say, at all. Um, and many people wonder, like, is Toyota just bad this season? Like, this great manufacturer, this great team that is the most successful, is considered to be the most successful brand in the WEC right now because of their success in hypercar. They won every single race except Le Mans. They won the championship in the last 3 years of the championship. However, I would argue that the WEC and specifically Toyota is still the fastest manufacturer out there, and we'll see them very different. And why I think that is because of two reasons. BOP has hit Toyota. That's not Toyota's fault. That's just the BOP. We'll talk about their exact BOP, why the BOP has impacted Toyota in just a moment. But also, Toyota weren't focusing primarily on lap times. From my understanding, they were focusing on long run pace, endurance, all that sort of thing. Toyota was focusing on trying to get the most laps, and they successfully did that. When we look at the lap times for how many laps completed by each manufacturer or team, Toyota Gazoo Racing completed the most laps out of any brand with both of their GR010. So that's quite impressive to see. And like we said previously, and we've mentioned many times across this live stream, the Prologue doesn't really indicate who's going to be the best manufacturer out there. So I would still put Toyota as the manufacturer to beat, but I would say, as David mentioned, they're not going to have a totally dominant season like they did last year. I think there's going to be some challenge, and this is a good point to mention as well, since we're on the topic of all these of all the existing brands from 2023 coming in. Huge improvements by all four of them: Ferrari, Porsche, Cadillac, and Peugeot. Cadillac, very strong session from them with their singular V Series R, the number 2 car, getting the second fastest time overall. Very good running with the Cadillac cars. We've seen them have very good reliability, and the Cadillacs go really well in the daytime hours in track conditions. But as David mentioned, one of the most surprising parts for me as well was Peugeot and their 9X8 Hypercar. That was very impressive to see them kind of in the mix in terms of times. They also didn't have many huge issues. The 9X8 Hypercars were very quick, very consistent on lap times. I believe they posted the fourth most amount of laps. I can look at the screen exactly on my end to see exactly how many laps they completed. They did, fourth. The fourth most laps, 501 exactly, where Toyota did around 570 laps completed overall. So Peugeot showing that they have the pace to potentially fight for podiums in this race, maybe even the race win. That's a big stretch considering where the 9X8 Hypercar's been, and this is also
Definitely,
the package before the rear wing comes. So that's quite interesting as well.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Like, what if now Peugeot all of a sudden are one of the faster cars, and then they'll change it up, and maybe it will all go back to being a car with huge reliability problems. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. But it's definitely nice to see a team like Peugeot being competitive, because we saw it at Le Mans. We saw a car in the rain, at least being competitive. So we know they have pace. It's just about finding that pace at more than just the rainy hours at Le Mans. But like seeing that team being fast is nice, because it's something that we haven't seen since the days of Audi and Peugeot racing against each other back in 2011. So, and if we get a season like that, then that would be really, really crazy.
And just want to point this out here as well. This is very awesome to see. We have the official FIA World Endurance Championship YouTube channel account in here. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us so far on this live stream. This is a huge surprise and a thank you as well. Great to see the official account for the YouTube channel coming in. But yeah, love to see the WEC expanding with this fantastic Qatar Prologue. I mean, every manufacturer showing that they have the pace to potentially fight for the win. And this is just how exciting is this to see endurance racing with the WEC on the rise, bringing in a new golden age with all these manufacturers. And this kind of transitions perfectly into a great subject. We have to talk about those new manufacturers in Hypercar. We have Alpine, BMW, Lamborghini, and Isotta Fraschini. The WEC is expanding into 2024 with more manufacturers on the grid as well. David, what's your thoughts on all those new brands coming into Hypercar? How well did they do as we head in, or as we come out of the Prologue from Qatar?
I mean, they have impressed me. More than I would think. Like, I thought they would be fighting for scrubs at the back of the field, to be honest. Obviously, we have BMW having already raced a bit in IMSA, so it's not a surprise to me that they're going to be up there and be fighting for podiums. But teams like Lamborghini, especially, has really impressed me. Like, being around the same times as Toyota is impressive for a completely new team to Hypercar and almost prototype racing. So that's really, really impressive. I would also say that Isotta is gonna. I hope they will find more pace. I hope this isn't a way, like a show how their pace will be all season. I think they will find some pace later on, but it's, again, that's like I talked about Lamborghini being new. Isotta is going to be even more of a new team, like a team we haven't heard before for, like, is it 60 years or something, if even that. So seeing these new teams coming up, being competitive is amazing. But yeah, I think we could get a new team at least finishing on the podium. I don't sleep on these new teams because they're really, really fast. And if reliability problems, we've seen it before when a lot of top manufacturers are in the top class, um, then reliability problems comes more often because they have to push the cars even more. So I'm excited for the season, also with the new teams. But I think it will be a tough time against these top cars driving out there.
And what did you think of the customer Ferrari as well? That's on track this
Yeah,
year.
I mean it's always funny to see a yellow yellow Ferrari and these privateer teams doing so well. Honestly, we talked about Jota, which is basically the same. They also brought the Porsche. So I'm interested in seeing how they will fare against the other team, the other Ferraris. I think they will be on a bit of the back foot, but they will come on to come back and be fast, because that Ferrari is extremely fast. Um, but yeah, like it's gonna be interesting to see. Like we also have Proton competition. We have the new Alpine, seeing how they will fare at Hypercar for real this time, not a LMP1 car, but for real with a Hypercar. That's gonna be interesting. But yeah, what do you think? Like I've talked a lot about the new cars, but like what do you think?
I think that it's great to see all these brands first off in Hypercar. We have 4 new manufacturers, 9 overall. And I think they showed what we kind of already expected, I would say, because we expected Isotta Fraschini and Lamborghini to not be as competitive compared to, for example, BMW and Alpine at the start in terms of like getting ready and all that sort of thing, because they're brand new to this type of racing. Lamborghini and Isotta Fraschini have never really gone into hybrid prototype racing when it comes to like Hypercar or LMP1, for example. They're both new to this. Alpine has experience with their A480. They already have a project with LMP2. I have drivers that have already experienced this sort of thing. And then, of course, BMW has already raced their M Hybrid V8 in IMSA. So BMW was the best out of the 4 brands. We saw that coming, and I think that was what we basically saw. BMW, out of those 4 brands, they put in, I believe, the most laps as well. And that's also down to the incredible experience of WRT. We know this team is very successful across LMP2 and GT. Of course, they won the WEC LMP2 class last year. They were very competitive with the number 41 car and even the 31. So overall, I think BMW showed that they have the pace to be the best manufacturer, at least in the start, and that was predictable considering their participation already. So great to see all that sort of thing. And I just want to point out as well that we got another great comment from the official FIA World Endurance Championship YouTube channel. I just got to point this out there because this is just absolutely incredible.
Crazy.
Yeah, they said keep up the content coming, guys. Love the coverage with the fire emoji. So that just lifts my spirits up. Thank you so much. That really means a lot to hear. But anyway, let's move on. We've talked all about Hypercar. We've talked a lot about these new Hypercars joining, but let's talk about that all-new category of LMGT3, because it wasn't just the Hypercars out on track. It was LMGT3 cars out on track. And like Hypercar, LMGT3 also has 9 brands, but they are different. Some are different compared to Hypercar. There's the likes of Lexus. There's the likes of McLaren. There's the likes of Ford returning to the WEC for the first time in a very long time. With an all-new Mustang GT3. So, David, just give us your general thoughts on LMGT3 from the Prologue session.
I mean, as much as many of these cars are new to WEC, they are not new to endurance racing. I mean, McLaren, Lexus, BMW have always competed in the GT World Challenge. Not Lexus, but the 2 others. And we have seen Lexus drive really well at IMSA. So it's not new teams, it's new to WEC. And for me, it's not surprising to see that the GT3 category is also incredibly close. Again, this is just prologue times, but in the top 10, I think it was Monday, under a second between the top 10. That's crazy. That reminds me of the times of GTE Pro fighting at Le Mans, where nothing was between the teams at the end of the 24 hours. So I'm really happy about the new class. I'm looking into an era of great racing in both classes. I think what I was a bit surprised by is how slow the Proton competition Mustangs were, because what I saw at Daytona was they could be competitive. They had some reliability problems at Daytona as well, but the car is fast, no doubt about it. But seeing McLaren being fast, seeing Porsche being fast, Aston Martin, and teams like that is not a surprise to me. This is very much the same cars as we've seen race at Nürburgring and Spa 24 hours. It's great cars, it's fast cars, it's great drivers. So seeing this at WEC and coming to Le Mans is great for the sport and great for the series.
Yeah, I think you explained it really well there, David. I think that LMGT3 is definitely showing that it is a category to watch in the WEC this season. And we have to remember, as David, you pointed out as well, every single car competing in the WEC GT category this season is brand new to the WEC. All the cars racing last season, such as the Porsche or the Chevrolet Corvette, are under GTE regulations, and those have been effectively retired. These are new GT3 regulations to the WEC. They're the same that have raced in previous series, of course, across the world. They're very iconic, and this ties into a question coming in saying, why is everyone saying LMGT3 is a new class? Reason why is because it is a new class. LMGT3 is a brand new category to the WEC, but the regulations are not new to endurance racing. They're just new to the WEC. So effectively it is new to the WEC, even though the cars have been racing in endurance racing forever. LMGT3, I think, really showed that, as you mentioned, all the cars were kind of under a second, which was, or at least the majority of them, in one of the sessions there, and that was pretty impressive, to see that we're already seeing some competitive times. And again, Prologue, we're not really sure exactly where manufacturers are going to be, but if we're going to be seeing that in the qualifying, and if we're going to be seeing that in the Qatar 18-12 kilometer and throughout the rest of the season, hey, I'm all for that. I want to see more racing in GT as well as the prototype categories, and that's what we're getting. I mean, the WEC is planning that, and yeah, absolutely incredible. So from my perspective of the Prologue, one manufacturer that looks surprisingly but not unrealistically competitive, McLaren. I'm very impressed by the McLaren United Autosports entries. They topped day one, I believe. The number 59 car, I believe, did. Could be wrong. It could be the 95, but I think it was the 59. McLaren look really strong. Another manufacturer that looks really strong is Ferrari. The Vista A of Corsa entries, the 54 and the 55. Those 296 GT3s look very, very strong. They were quick in both sessions. And overall, I think the LMGT3 class was, all manufacturers were kind of producing some very good laps. They were producing some long run paces. Of course, we don't know exactly what each team is doing. We don't know that exactly because we're not in the garages talking with these people. I mean, me and David aren't. There's other people out there that are, of course.
Unfortunately, we are not, but yeah.
maybe in the future. But yeah, for now at least, we know that we're just judging by off of the data we get to see. But LMGT3 looks competitive, looks pretty strong. Another manufacturer that looks pretty strong in LMGT3, and I'll just point this out before we move on to our next topic, was Aston Martin. The Vantage GT3 was pretty competitive. All new Vantage GT3. It's technically the same car, just an Evo version of it. But D-Station Racing, I believe, topped the session, or day 2 at least. They topped the day 2 with the fastest time of a 1:54.944. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the fastest time. I could be wrong. I think it was the fastest time overall. Oh no, it was not the fastest time. Okay. So I think it was maybe the second fastest time. Just checking my notes here. But yeah, Aston Martin very quick, with not just the D-Station car, but also the Heart of Racing entry as well. Heart of Racing full time, with, I believe it's now called the 27 car, as it is in IMSA. So that's great to see. But I would look out for Aston Martin in this upcoming Qatar 1812 kilometer. They look pretty strong.
Definitely. I mean, Aston Martin is also a fun team to look at when we know that they're going to have a hypercar coming next year.
Right.
So some of the drivers that we're seeing, especially at Heart of Racing, it's going to be fun to see who is going to be pushed up and put into that hypercar. I mean, there's some class drivers driving from Aston Martin over the years. I mean, there is class in that team. Like, it's not only Lance Stroll all the time, but I see Aston Martin coming through, as they've done so many times in GT, being competitive and being up there. They have also just launched a new GT3 car, so that's going to be interesting in seeing how they'll fare on. And I mean, I love GT3, so seeing so many different cars coming to that class is nice to see again, because we have just been used to. I mean, I remember GT Pro when that closed down with only Porsche and Ferrari. It was nice racing, but we needed more teams, and now we finally see a very competitive field of cars in both classes. So I think that time of classes having so few teams that the racing isn't that exciting is over now. It definitely seems so. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we're only at the start of the season, and already we can talk about how close these classes are. So I can't imagine what it will be like when we get to Le Mans and further into the season.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there that GTE, while it was competitive, it was successful and all that sort of thing. After kind of Hypercar was introduced with the LMH and LMDh regulations, a lot of manufacturers kind of switched over to their. BMW, for example, at the time, Aston Martin. And just other brands also kind of left as well. GTE, for example, Ford, to focus more on a customer-based racing and all that sort of thing. But yeah, GTE, great series and all. But at the end of it, I mean, 2023, we didn't see a lot of like battles for the championship. For example, Corvette, the number 33 Corvette from Chevrolet, that car was arguably dominant. They won the first 2 races of the season. They fended off the 83 Ferrari, Richard Mille Ferrari, I believe, in the final couple of minutes of the 6 hours of Portimao in 2023. But overall, Corvette was very strong, and they won the championship in Monza 3 races early. But I think that time of a car brand winning with a few races to go, and not super far, but I think that time's over, because these new GT3 regulations coming into the WEC, or at least not new to endurance racing, but just new to the WEC, are going to bring some incredible racing. I think we're going to see the championship head into the final race at Bahrain, which will be absolutely incredible. And Hypercar won't be the only championship where we see a championship go down between a lot of manufacturers. So overall, pretty good from LMGT3 from the Prologue session. Pretty good session by all manufacturers. Overall, there was a few that were focusing on other things. Overall, a few maybe didn't have a perfect session or whatever, but I think it all kind of worked out in the end, and they'll go into the Qatar 1812 kilometer learning a lot and knowing a lot, and hopefully make those changes and fight for overall victory in the GT categories. So victory in GT. But anyway, let's get into the BOP, because we've been talking about like how the BOP works and all this sort of thing. We've been talking about
Yeah.
how BOP is affecting some of the hypercar entries, such as Toyota, which we'll mention. But I think this is a very, very important factor to remember, that the BOP does have an impact on this. So I'm going to bring up a screen now so you guys can see all this. So this is the BOP adjustments, and I know this is a lot of numbers out on your screen right now, but this is all important data. You know, we have all brands in Hypercar listed on here. This is for power and for weight, as you can see at the top of the bar there. So power on the left, weight on the right. And Peugeot. The 9X8 Hypercar is doing the best on power. They have the most power granted. That's 520 kilowatts. That's 697 HP or horsepower. And then over on the weight side, they have the lightest car on the grid with 1030 kg and 2270 pounds. So very good for Peugeot. And this may be one of the reasons why the 9X8 Hypercar is going really well, alongside them learning quite a bit, and then coming into this season probably a little different. I think this is a significant factor.
Yeah, and I think people need to remember that, like, BOP is not a new system. It's a new system for Hypercar, and it's a new system for the leading class of WEC. But we saw it in GT Pro for a long time before this. And obviously BOP can hit teams differently, and teams have to adapt to the BOP. But like we saw last year, even though BOP hit, and we've seen it many years before, and I remember the first few years of Hypercar, where BOP hit Toyota hard, but still Toyota were the dominating car. So I think this BOP, it gives us an indicator of which of the teams may have an advantage at first hand, but in the end, if the car doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that's the lovely thing about endurance racing is, okay, yeah, the car is not as fast on the numbers, but then it's more reliable. It's more fuel efficient. We saw with Audi versus Peugeot in the back in the old days, where they had to pull out some great strategies at Le Mans to win those races, because the Peugeot was faster. It simply was. So I love the fact that we see a close championship with these BOP adjustments. And right now, yeah, it's interesting seeing Peugeot being on top. And of course, it reflects on the times, but it's also track dependent. It's race to race. It's everything changes all the time, and that's the great thing about racing. I mean, we can't expect to see the same car winning every time. That's why we tune in every single race.
Yeah, you make a good point there that not this BOP graph doesn't automatically mean that a manufacturer is going to be struggling. Like, for instance, Peugeot, them having I'd say arguably the best BOP here, adjustments at least. This doesn't automatically mean that the 9X8 Hypercar is going to be blowing away the rest of the field and lapping every single car.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so this is just an effect. You know, it's not really like transitioning the entire grid into having one manufacturer better than the other. But speaking of this affecting one brand, Toyota hit with massive weight penalties. They have the heaviest car on the grid. It's a fact. You can see them at the bottom of your screen there on the weight side. They have the heaviest car on the grid, but ultimately it does kind of equal out in general. But this weight penalty may have a small effect on why Toyota might not be exactly the fastest manufacturer, or at least the most dominant that we saw, like, for example, at the 8 Hours of Bahrain last year, when the number 8 Toyota started the race in first and effectively just kept going. You know, they basically won the race from start to finish. And that's not like a problem. It's more of just a fact. You know, it's that happened. But this penalty of weight may just affect a little bit of their performance, and that might ultimately mean that another manufacturer might be challenging them for the race win or a podium, for example. So that's the BOP graph. I'm just going to remove that screen now so we get back onto our faces here in the main live stream. So yeah, Peugeot seems to have the overall best BOP, but as David, you mentioned, it doesn't mean that they're going to be the best.
No, I don't think, like we just mentioned, Toyota being the heaviest car on the grid. Yeah, but I think they will still be one of the fastest, if not the fastest car on the grid. It's, I mean, we can talk BOP all we want, but I think the beautiful thing about BOP is what we saw at Le Mans last year. At Le Mans last year, we saw every single manufacturer leading at some point, except Glickenhaus and Van Wall. And not to say anything bad about those two teams, but I don't think anyone would expect them to be leading at some point. So seeing a BOP standing like this and thinking, oh, now we know that Toyota is going to be slow and it's all WEC's fault. I think it's more in a way to make the championship close again, to not having seasons where it's only one car winning all the races. But even when we have BOP, even when we try to restrict these cars, Toyota still won every single race last year except Le Mans. That's even with BOP hitting them each race harder and harder and harder.
True. Yeah.
So I don't see that BOP is the almighty thing. But yeah, as you said, I mean it's a great indicator of which team is doing great, because then we can see them getting hit hard on the BOP standings.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We'll definitely see what happens, in terms of like who's going to be the best manufacturer here. We'll see when we get to the actual race itself. We won't know exactly. We won't know exactly who's going to be the best manufacturer. And like we said many times, this prologue is just a test session. It's not really an indicator to show that one manufacturer is better than the other. So, I want to mention as well, thank you to everybody that's joined so far. We have over 100 viewers now, which is great to see. Yes, over, not 100, over 100 viewers. So that's awesome. And I've been loving, I want to say this again, I've been loving you guys' support through all these videos. We have so much content coming out. I'm working day and night, to be honest, to get the content out alongside college, which is a pain, but it all works out. It's all beneficial, and ultimately what I want is to get the content out to you guys. It makes me feel good to be able to deliver content on a series that I know and love, which is the WEC and IMSA and other endurance racing series as well. But yeah, so
yeah, and seeing the comment section being so involved is great to see. I mean, yeah, we are talking about this stuff, but don't think that we don't look at the chat and see you guys discussing and talking about BOP and all that stuff. It's great to see this community getting together and talking about this, because I feel I talked to Jonah about this beforehand, that what at least I want to do with this is also create a community about this, talk about this, getting endurance racing to the potential it is. Like, it has such a huge potential, but I think like it's been forgotten a bit in LMP1 and Toyota winning all the races, and then people fall off and don't watch the whole thing. It's long races at the end of the day. So seeing so many people watching this and being involved in it is great to see.
For sure, yeah, it's definitely the WEC and IMSA and endurance racing just in general has really picked up in the last couple of years, and I believe that's for a couple of reasons. We could discuss this topic in a whole live stream, but
Yeah.
In general, Hypercar and GTP has really helped with that. These new regulations have really sparked a new golden age, and then of course we have the new regulations added to the WEC, or I keep saying this, but GT3, normal regulations that have been around for a while but new to the WEC. But yeah, Hypercar, LMGT3, great to see that. And by the way, if you all are kind of curious what's going on with the LMP2 class, because it was there last year, LMP2 is gone. It is no longer on the WEC grid, but it will be at Le Mans exclusively. We're expecting around 16 cars, depending on if an entry backs out or something like that. We could see another entry in LMP2 or one less, if, for example, Proton doesn't get there. Oh, and hold on a second. I think I lost David. Just want to make sure. Where is he? Hold on a moment. I'm just trying to get David here. There we go. Your camera went off for a moment from the live stream, but you're back.
Okay, that's good. That's
okay.
Good. Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah.
Little technical issue there. But anyway, what were you gonna say from what I was saying?
You cut completely out. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
but
basically I was just going over. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I see a question that I think like Dylan Gonzalez asking how we find the time to watch a 24-hour race. We don't, honestly. But like for me at least, it's having a day where you just drink a lot of coffee, and I would not advise people to do this stuff. But being up with some friends and drinking coffee and energy drinks and just having a great time watching this race is what's keep me going. And even I would say I'm a hardcore endurance racing fan. I will still sleep through Daytona's nights sometimes. I would prioritize my time, and okay, Le Mans, I would say I watch 24 hours as many times as I can, but yeah, sometimes I slip. I mean, when there's a safety car for a few hours in the middle of the night, yeah, I think about sleeping. So you have to plan it, but it's destroying one's sleep schedule, and it's a few days where you feel really shitty afterwards.
Yeah, that's a good question from the audience here. How do we manage through an entire 24-hour endurance race? For me, I don't drink coffee. I just go through it. I just do it. But what I do is, like for Le Mans, I usually just like get as much sleep I can beforehand. And then I just try and stay awake as much as possible. But I pray for like safety cars and all that sort of thing. I pray for some safety cars to come out, because sometimes there's like when the WEC does their like all the cars get in line, IMSA, same thing for Rolex 24, where all the cars kind of transition into the correct order with Hypercar or GTP in front and all the GT behind and LMP2 in there as well. I try and get a little bit of sleep during those points and during the night, because not a ton happens at night. It's kind of quiet. But sometimes it does. So it's random, you just kind of have to take that risk and see how it goes. But anyway, moving on, I think we should... So, David, I want to get your just general thoughts from the Qatar Prologue that we had on Monday and Tuesday. So, as we've mentioned, I'm going to say it again. I know that this is kind of repetitive, but we've mentioned this so many times, but the Qatar Prologue doesn't really indicate where one manufacturer is going to be. But if you were to guess, judging by the Prologue and just in general your thoughts, where would you say which manufacturer is going to be battling for the overall win?
Oh man, that's a great question. I mean, I don't believe that we have seen everything Toyota has to show and has to give. So
right.
I actually think it's going to be Toyota winning the first race of the season. But I think it's going to be a battle between Toyota, Ferrari, and Porsche. I think those are the teams that are going to be up there fighting consistently. But I think it's going to be Toyota. Yeah, I think they're going to win this first season, and I think the first race, and I think they're going to be. Maybe it's gonna maybe shock a few people that, oh no, it's gonna be a season like the last few years where Toyota just win every single time. But I think the race, if one watches the races, I think you would see that it's gonna be way more competitive this year, even if the number 7 or number 8 car still wins every single race.
Yeah, you make a good point that even if Toyota wins, it could be still an amazing season, and we expect it to be amazing. I'm going to go bold here. I'm just going to say that I think Ferrari's got a really good chance of winning this, judging by the Prologue, judging by how many cars they have, 3 on the grid. But I do think that It's going to be a very close battle between Ferrari, Toyota, and Porsche, like you mentioned. The only other brand, actually, no, I could see two more brands in the fight for the win as well. And that's kind of bold considering where we've been last year. I see Peugeot potentially even in the fight there, battling with the Porsches. I see also Cadillac fighting for the win as well with the number 2 car. The reason, and I would say Cadillac more. The reason why is because look at the Rolex 24 earlier this year. That Cadillac number 31 car was so consistent. Reliability was great on that car. Not so much for the 01, but more for the 31. But that car was on fire throughout the entire race. Not literally, metaphorically. But yeah, that 31 car was really doing well. And same with the Porsche number 7. So I would expect Porsche and Cadillac to be very consistent on reliability. And I think a question that a lot of people have going into this race, this season, is will an LMDh car finally win a race in the WEC? I would say yes. I would say not one, but maybe even 2 races this season could go the way of a Porsche or a Cadillac. Honestly, I know this is kind of unfortunate, but I don't know if BMW or Alpine's going to be in the fight at the start, or Lamborghini, for example, even though we want to see them all in the fight for the overall victory. I don't think it's possible, at least now, because this is their first race, remember, in the WEC. This is more of a learning race. I believe one of the Alpine drivers, it might have been Habsburg, but I can't remember exactly, mentioned that this is kind of a learning race for Alpine, or a learning a couple of races for Alpine, and that I would assume is the same for Lamborghini and Isotta Fraschini, for example, maybe even BMW. I think BMW is going to be the best out of the new manufacturers. I'm interested to see where Isotta Fraschini is going to be, considering they are the small manufacturer heading into this. We know that they are probably going to be towards the back, unfortunately. Of course, I think me and David can both agree, and I'm sure a lot of you in the comments can also agree, that we want to see Isotta Fraschini do well. They're one of the manufacturers that I'm voting for. I really like the company in general and all the people involved in the project. I think that is an awesome project that they have going there. However, we have to be realistic. We have to be realistic and show that Isotta Fraschini is probably going to need some time to get up to speed and get ready for this. But I don't think they're going to be on the same like Van Wall or Glickenhaus level. At least at the start, I think they're going to be around the same pace that Glickenhaus was. And that's good considering Glickenhaus was pretty competitive at like Monza, for example, or even Le Mans reliability. And I think Isotta Fraschini eventually will be the fastest of the 3 manufacturers that have participated in Hypercar out of the private cars, like the smaller brands. I would say they're not private cars; they're not like privateer teams; they're actual manufacturers. But out of those smaller brands, I think Isotta Fraschini is going to do much better because of their resources, because of all the people involved, because they have a hybrid, and so on.
Yeah.
But in general, I think Isotta at the start, and maybe even Lamborghini, might struggle just a little bit. So I think it's all about surviving this one. And once they come to like Imola, for example, hopefully they'll have a better understanding of that car, or cars in the case of Lamborghini included. And then they'll take the fight to the other new brands and maybe even the top 5 that have been in the WEC for quite some time.
Yeah, and this is also a great opportunity for those new teams because it's a long race. We mentioned before it's a 10-hour race.
Right.
So having these long races, and this is also in Qatar, it's an extremely hot race, no matter what time of the year you drive there. So testing the cars on a track like this for such a long time in race pace. I mean, yeah, they do 24-hour tests with the cars, but it's different when come race day. So racing for 10 hours straight, seeing how the car reacts to that is going to be such an important learning curve, and just learning for 10 hours about these cars. I think BMW is going to be competitive, though. I think they have a full season under their belt from IMSA, being competitive, being up there in the championship. So I see them fighting, and that's also, if you guys haven't seen a live stream from last week, go watch some clips of it, because we talk about these teams where we think they would the manufacturers would be placed in the championship, and that's also I think some of those things we talked about there will be prominent at the first race here. I mean, so far I'm not surprised by the results of testing, but it's testing, so let's see.
Yeah, we will see when we come to qualifying. I think that's the real good estimate to show like which manufacturer is going to be best. And then, of course, the race is the ultimate challenge to see who's going to be on top for the Qatar 18-12 kilometer, or AKA the 10-hour endurance race. And if you guys did not watch the Qatar 18-12 kilometer explained video, that one's very important to watch, considering it kind of explains what the Qatar 18-12 kilometer is. And I'm just going to quickly point this out as well while we're on the subject of the race and the videos. It may be confusing when I come out with the race preview to understand like what's the difference between the Qatar 18-12 kilometer explained video and the Qatar 18-12 kilometer preview video. The Qatar explained is basically an explanation of what that event is and what the event is as in general. The preview for the race is basically what is about that Qatar 18-12 kilometer. So it's everything about that race, like in terms of the entries, in terms of the history, in terms of like how this came about and when it's going to be on the calendar, in terms of the distance, in terms of the I don't know. Anyway, you get the point. So there's a difference, and that race preview is coming out very soon. I also wanted to mention as well, since we're kind of towards the end of our prologue recap here, it's been a hugely successful stream, I gotta say. But I also want to mention that Hypercar Updates number 11, the episode 11, is unfortunately not coming out this month. Reason why is because, honestly, I got too much to do. With all these videos coming out, there's a lot of content to do. This is my third or fourth live stream I've done this week, and so I've had a lot of time doing this, and I'm grateful for doing it. But Hypercar Updates, I think, would just be too much for me to put out at this time. So that's why it's not coming out. Hopefully, we'll be back for March when things kind of calm down. I always say to everybody that the biggest time for content is always the start of the IMSA season, the start of the WEC, and of course the 24 hours of Le Mans. So that's June, January, and this year February with the Qatar 18-12 kilometer. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send them in the comments. We will try and answer. But David, any more topics you want to mention?
I mean, we could talk for hours about this, and I mean, we haven't even touched about this big new game coming out that came out, I think, last week or something, Le Mans Ultimate. But yeah, as you mentioned, please ask questions, and if not on stream, then we are also on Instagram and on videos. So please hit us up, and at least I know you are busy, Jonah, and I'm too, but we will try to answer your questions when they come in. So yeah, I mean, for me, I can't wait. So right now I'm just watching all the content that I can, and being a part of this is really helping on my nerves for the first race. I'm ready to see those cars race again, and see this season fly by, because I have no doubt in my mind that this year is gonna be amazing, and I'm gonna feel like it's only just started when we come to the end of the season.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I fully think that it's going to be like that, you know. It's going to be an incredible season. But Le Mans Ultimate, definitely something we can talk about for a long time, something that a lot of people have been wondering what is going on with. It did release on the 20th of February, if I'm not mistaken, so about last week or so. I plan to do some live streams of it on Twitch, not here on YouTube. I plan to do on Twitch when I officially get the game. I'm waiting to get the game. It's kind of a technical side. I need to get some updates for my PC and all that sort of thing, which means so I can play. It's only on PC, by the way, for anybody wondering. Unfortunately, yeah, it won't be on console, at least for now. I think they have made it clear that they want to bring it onto console. I believe they mentioned it a few times in some press releases and all that sort of thing, the people making the game. That's Studio 397, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah, the same team that made R Factor
Yeah,
too.
Factor
So
2.
I think, and it's early in it's. I mean, you're quite lucky that you have to update your computer because right now it's of course in early access. It's and there's made a lot of points about why it's early access and it's money they need and what on, but so forth. And I think it's a new game. It's a completely new. I mean, yeah, it reminds many people of R Factor 2, but it's a new game. It's the first time we see a game based on WEC, like solely focused on that. And I'm honestly happy that this game is out, and it's it has impressed me because I honestly I didn't have the highest expectations for the game for like how it would run. When they said it was early access, I was sure there were going to be bugs, and yeah, there is bugs, and yeah, it's not perfect, but it has so much potential, and it's really showing it. So I'm looking forward to getting the game if if we all get it to a console. I hope so, but yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely see how it goes. Le Mans Ultimate, currently on PC. It's definitely something to look into if you're interested in endurance racing and in video games as well. Something cool. So, we talked about Le Mans Ultimate. We talked about Hypercar updates. We talked about, of course, the Prologue. That was something awesome. We had a question coming in from Stefan who asks, does anyone know if WEC is still on Eurosport in the UK? I believe it's through Discovery Plus, but to be honest, I'm in the US, so I'm not really sure exactly. David, do you know the answer to that question?
I know that the WC have put a post up on Instagram
Oh,
with
that's true.
live coverage for the whole world. So, like, I would recommend going on Instagram and seeing where they will stream from in your country. I know it's in the States. It's on Max, HBO Max as well. And I know there's a couple of different options in the UK as well. But I would go check on Instagram WEC. I don't know if you're doing it right now, Jonah.
I read my mind.
But
Yes, I was. I'm on Instagram right now. I'm looking at so for the United Kingdom, it does say Eurosport 2. Eurosport 2. I'm not very familiar with all the channels over there, but if that's something different than normal Eurosport, you get the idea. So for the UK,
yeah,
it's streamed live on Eurosport 2. That's the I believe that's the same for France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, and so on. Like almost there's a lot of European countries that are it's on Eurosport too. So that's the way to watch it if you're over in Europe. I think the
and if
WEC has a post, and I'll link it in the description too.
yeah, and if you're any in doubt of can I watch it in my country? So there is the WEC app where you can buy a subscription and watch it live there. It costs a bit of money, of course, but I mean, it's worth it in my mind. And then you will always be sure you can watch the race no matter where you are. So yeah, if in doubt, go on WEC. They will have the answers for you.
Okay, and I'm just going to point this out real quickly, and definitely good point that David made there for everybody wondering. WEC app is the best place to watch this, as it is an official World Endurance Championship broadcast. Thank you to a lot of people in the comments, actually. A few people mentioned that Eurosport 2 is Discovery Plus. So, okay, that makes sense. So, Discovery Plus is the way to watch the WEC. Okay, so we move on. I don't know if there's anything more to say, really. David, do you have any final thoughts before on the prologue or just anything in general before we conclude?
Honestly, no. I'm just again. I can only say thank you for having me. I mean, I've been talking to Jonah for a while now, but also seeing the comment section welcoming me so much is it's heartwarming. It's really nice. And you understanding my English even though I'm Danish and having a bit of a Danish accent, but yeah, it's I'm just happy that you will have me and then I get to talk about this with you, Jonah, and with you guys in the comment section. It's nice. It's really nice.
Well, it's great to have you here, David. I'm sure everybody is excited to see another face besides me here on the FJ YouTube channel. And David will be back next week, as we will be as well. We were going to be doing our big live stream. This is the big one, what we've been preparing for. It is the WEC Qatar 1812 kilometer race review live stream. Yes, live stream. Not a normal video, a live stream. So that's on March 6th, exactly at this time, or exactly at when we started. That's 10 o'clock Pacific US time. So yeah, I can go into converting time zones, but that will take a couple of years. So don't worry about that. You can find a way to convert that. But yeah, 10 a.m. Pacific US time, March 6th. That is going to be the WEC race preview. You will see both me and David on that live stream once again, discussing what happened over the Qatar 1812 kilometer. But until next time, you guys all have a great a great weekend, a great week, and make sure to tune in for the Qatar 1812 kilometer. It is going to be an incredible weekend of racing. Endurance racing is officially back. The WEC is officially back. It is so good to say that sentence, as we are back for 2024 from winter break. Also, tomorrow we have another video coming out, maybe even today if I get it out in time. It is going to be the Qatar 1812 kilometer race preview. It details all the main information ahead of this race. And hopefully I'll put out another video before the official event this weekend. But yeah, I hope you all enjoy your rest of the week. Again, tune in for the Qatar 1812 kilometer on March 2nd at 11 a.m. local time in Qatar. That's when the race starts. And that, of course, is going to be on a Saturday. So definitely tune in for them. But David, thank you so much for joining me throughout this live stream. That was the WEC Qatar Prologue session analysis. It's an analysis for that one. But yeah, we'll see you all in the next.